Good evening and welcome to The Source. I'm your host, Kobe Owens.
Hi, I'm Jay Street.
And look, we have an exciting show, but right now, Pastor and other members of the church are enjoying a cruise right now. They left us behind. But I want to jump right into a serious topic. Earlier in the week, there was 3 men who were shot over the east side. And again, we're starting to see a trend of gun violence tick up as the weather gets warmer. But I know this is something that we've talked about a lot on the show. And this is something we're going to keep talking about until there's actually a plan in place to address this. Jay?
Well, if you recall last week, when they dedicated the raising of the houses on Bennett Street, we were told that this was going to help resolve the problem of gun violence on the east side, and as a result of the houses being built, that was going to continue, and there was a 60% reduction in gun violence on the east side. And I can only say that the shooting at 9th and Lombard a week ago makes that fake news.
Yeah, and again, that shooting was 2 17-year-olds and a 22-year-old. The 22-year-old was taken to the hospital in critical condition, and as of right now, is still fighting to get better. So again, this is a continuing trend of a young city residents who are being affected by gun violence, but then also there was children out there when this shooting took place. It's 8 p.m. on a Sunday in the summertime. The sun's still out. So it's just a sad thing to continue to have to hear about, and the trauma that affects the kids who had to witness that as well too.
It's a sad thing to hear about, and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, but we as a people have got to look beyond the government, city resources to break up this gun violence, because the regrettable harsh fact is that it's our children shooting our children. Mm-hmm. And we've got to look beyond government resources to help resolve this problem. And it's past time that we started trying to come together as a community and as a people to say enough is enough and this has to stop. By the same token, what I keep harping on, and I stay in my lane for the most part, so long as these children are miseducated and don't have access to the things necessary, the tools and what you need to get a good paying job and be able to live comfortably, as long as our education system is failing, this problem's not going to go away. Mm-hmm. And so those who say it's a nationwide problem, yes, because our educational system is failing inner city children nationwide, and that's what has to be dealt with. And I'm going to go right back to the shootings happening on the east side, go right back to what I keep saying about the failing schools in the Christina School District in the city, and no plan to do anything above and beyond differently. And all I'm saying is, when you know that these children, less than 10% are meeting the standards, and that was 5-6 years ago, and it's continued, then if you're not going to do anything, the first thing, if I'm superintendent of Christina School District, I cut those classes in half, okay? The second thing is, for those students who need smaller group sizes, who need individual instruction, who need individual counseling, you provide those services. But nobody's talking about that.
Right.
Because you're going to double the cost of the operation, probably need to quadruple the cost, but it's worth every penny if you're going to be able to make sure that children are able to reach their maximum potential academically.
I agree with you. And, another point I just want to point out about this, for months we heard about the low gun violence, but last month alone, 16 people were involved with gun shootings and injured in that. That's the most since November 2021, when it was 17 people who were injured. So we're seeing this tick back up. Also, the day before this shooting over on the 900 block of Lombard Street, which has had a shooting at least once a year for the last 3 years, which is a tragic statistic. The day before, a 43-year-old over South Bridge, over this way, was also critically injured due to gun violence. So this is something, we saw a lot of shootings this past weekend, and this is something that should be addressed.
But the fact of the matter is, the ongoing gun violence, and again, make the comparison with how the state and other people dealt with the Williams administration and his record and what was transpiring when this became Murder Town, USA, is far, far less than that of the current administration over the last 5.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to make a change in police leadership. Nobody wants to make a change in police methodologies. And, we're failing on a lot of ends, and go right back to the schools, the police, and the community as a community, because, far too many people know who's committed these crimes, who's doing these shootings, and, which we'll get into on the rest of the agenda. But how do you arrest children 14, 15 years old for gun violence, and you make no effort that I can see to find out where and how they got the guns?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guns aren't manufactured here. Okay, the derivatives of drugs that young people are selling on the streets are not, they can't be grown here except for marijuana. So, all these things are imported, but to have 14, 15 a proliferation now of teenagers carrying guns and no effort to see who and how they're getting these guns just doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree. And another thing I just want to point out, while there's a lot of statistics being thrown around, that, we have a lower crime rate, a lower gun violence crime rate than last year, which is true, right? But last year at this same point, we have 57 killings, or 57 shootings with 12 killings. At this point, we're at 47 shootings with 7 killings. So we're almost right on par. It has not been a dramatic drop, which is the issue that's going on. And with all this ARPA funding, the American Rescue Act planning funding that's supposed to be going to gun violence prevention, we're just not seeing it. They borrowed in an outside group from Newark, and now we're starting to see the numbers go up. The strategies have changed a little. The numbers are going back up.
But what's so sad to me is 9th and Lombard, 9th Street, used to be a great place to live in the city of Wilmington.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the houses between 800 and 900 on Lombard were built. You had some of the pillars of the community, some of the pillars of the east side living down there. And it was a great place to live. And then all of a sudden, 40 years later, it's a major problem. Mm-hmm. And that just doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree.
And it's very, very sad. It was a great place to live, close to downtown. People were happy. I remember residents, being able to walk uptown, do their shopping, and families being raised, basically having a good time and a safe, happy life on the east side, and that's certainly not the case now.
I agree. And now, also, this past week, we saw a 14-year-old over Canby Park also get shot. And since that incident has happened, he was wounded, but not in critical condition. That happened around 6:45 p.m. On Monday. They have since arrested 2 teenagers in investigation into that. One was actually detained right there on site. There was a ton of cops over there, a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Well, at this point, I want to reiterate what I said earlier. How do you not investigate, find out where those children, these are children shooting children, where those children got those guns? Mm-hmm. And some adult put the gun in the hands of those children, and they need to be prosecuted. That individual or those people need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The only way you break some of this foolishness up And you know, we look over the last couple of weeks, the Attorney General's office has come forward and prosecuting now some people who may get up to 245 years for straw purchases of guns. But that's where we need to be with this, because these children didn't walk into a gun store and buy the guns.
Right.
Some adult put it in there and made it possible for them to have these weapons, and that's just outrageous.
And again, you know, as we're seeing all across the nation, gun violence is hitting our communities. We saw what happened in Buffalo. We saw what happened in Texas. We saw what happened just on South Street in Philly. It's time for people in power to wake up and to do something about this. And I know y'all are probably sick and tired of us talking about gun violence, but it's an issue that is truly impacting our community at a disproportionate rate that I think, one, does not get the attention it should, and two, it definitely does not get the resources it should.
Well, you know, walking in here this morning preparing for the show, and you know, we don't coordinate and decide what we're going to wear and all that, but I noticed that both of us had on blue, and basically I've got the blues. Because of the gun violence here, because of the gun violence across the country, and because at the federal level, the predominance of decision makers really do not care, and they can talk about the progress with negotiations and be optimistic all they want. They didn't do anything following Sandy Hook, and my better judgment tells me they're not going to do anything now. And even what's on the table in the discussions at the federal level, to me, they're all superfluous. You know, there's not going to be any conversation to ban assault weapons. And then when you look at what the pediatrician testified in Congress about these children, at least two of them, the assault rifle decapitated them. Bodies unrecognizable. And then you have the Republicans saying, and I was very, very sad that a Republican uncle agent stands outside the door and says, no, I'm not going to support that because we're depriving 18, 19, that would deprive 18, 19, and 20-year-olds of their constitutional Second Amendment right to have an assault weapon. Nobody should have an assault weapon. They were banned for 10 years, and we didn't have the level of problems that we had for the 10 years that they were banned, and then the Republicans let the law go away. And so we've had to deal with this for 18 years now, and there are consequences to it, but they really don't care.
Right. And you know, another thing I just want to point out, one of those kids could only be identified by the shoes she had on. And she wore green Converses with red heart on the toe that she drew on. And she wore them to school every day, and that's the only way they were able to identify her body.
And that's what the pediatrician testified to. And if you don't care about that, which some of the people said that no, they weren't changing anything, you don't care about anything, and you shouldn't be in office. But the overall major problem we have is you've got people who are unscrupulous at best, who are running around. The right is too far to the right, and in my opinion, the left is too far to the left, and all these outlandish things on both sides of the spectrum just need to stop. And when you have people who you can see don't care about other people, who wants to work with people of goodwill who want to who would ordinarily want to hold these positions and titles? Who wants to come up and work with people that you know are unscrupulous? And leadership overall in this country, and we as a nation overall in some instances have just lost our morality, and it's sad. And I don't know what, if anything's going to be done about it, because everybody's for themselves now. There's no reason to be optimistic about being able to maintain anything in November, because the $5 a gallon gas, the expenses at the grocery store. I mean, that's everyday life with people, and people, I think, are going to vote in accordance with that, and there's no relief in sight that I see.
I agree with you on that. And again, you know, we're
agreeing on too many things. We got to find something to disagree about.
We, as we sit here, the General Assembly is debating assault weapons ban right now. The leadership in the House and in the Senate both said that they're going to get a package of gun legislation done, right? Right here in Delaware, they're looking to change the age from 18 to 21 to purchase a gun. Their assault weapons ban. Right. They're, trying to get rid of high capacity magazines, right? Large capacity magazines. And, you have people who have traditionally been against this, but now they're starting to see we can't keep waiting because we don't want something like that to happen here in Delaware. And when someone said that in committee, and they're not a Wilmington representative, I wanted to speak up so bad to say, but we are seeing that in Delaware already. We're seeing the impacts of assault weapons right here in the city of Wilmington. We're seeing the impact of the large capacity magazines right here in Wilmington.
And in Dover.
And in Dover.
And in other areas downstate.
Right.
The shootings are every day.
Right. And I don't see why some elected officials still sit back and say nothing when they talk about this. It is happening right here in our communities. And I don't know where these bills are going to go. They believe they have the votes to get them done, which I would be very happy. The Senate has already took SB 6, which was Senator Sokola and Representative Trococha's bill. It had passed the Senate, and then it went to the House. The House put an amendment on it, which pretty much made it defunct. The Senate said, no, we're not doing that, and introduced a substitute to make it stronger again. And they just sent it back to the House, and the House should be voting on that pretty soon. So there's a lot in motion when it comes to this, but again, at the federal level, we have to see action. We saw the House pass a sweeping reform package on Wednesday night, but I have very little faith it's going to go anywhere in the Senate.
No, it's not going anywhere in the Senate, and I appreciate the effort of Delaware elected officials in bringing forward the legislation, but we're one state, I think we're the second smallest state. What about the other 49?
Right.
That has an impact on everybody, and you needn't look any further than somebody coming from California last week to come to D.C. and try to kill a United States Supreme Court justice. Mm-hmm. So when you got people coming from other states doing going from one side of the country to another, again, what is being done by our elected officials here is greatly appreciated, but what about the other 49 states? Because the other 49 certainly have an impact on us and the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. And we will be right back.
My name's McGruff, and I'm the crime dog. The other day, my nephew Scruff was on his way to school when one of his friends showed him what was in his backpack. And it wasn't a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I can tell you that much.
Hey guys, check this out.
Kyle! That's a gun!
I know, Mara. Cool, right?
It is not cool. Not at all.
Kyle, what are you doing with a gun in your backpack? It's not like I'm gonna use it. I just want to show my friends.
I don't know, Kyle. You can get in trouble if you bring a gun to school.
Dude, big trouble.
It's not even loaded.
How do you know? Do you even know how to find out?
Well, I think it's not loaded.
And someone could get seriously hurt.
Why are you guys being so weird about this?
It's scary, dude. You shouldn't bring a gun to school. We have to tell a teacher.
You guys are gonna tell on me?
We have to, Kyle. I don't want someone to get hurt. I know a lot about gun safety from my Uncle McGruff. This right here, this is exactly what he warned me about. This is how accidents happen. We need to stop, don't touch, get away, and tell an adult.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Kyle put everyone in a really tough situation by bringing a gun to school, and he put them all in danger. But because I talked to Scruff all the time about gun safety, he knew exactly what to do. It's not cool to bring a gun to school, and kids should always tell an adult if they see someone with a gun at school. Remember, if you find a gun, stop, don't touch, get away, tell an adult.
So this is a photo of Nicholas. This is the last picture of him that was taken. It's actually 30 minutes before the shooting happened. My name is Alea Eastman, and I'm from Parkland, Florida. Oh yeah, I had definitely had the High School Musical expectation for high school. I definitely thought it was gonna be just like that, but that's not how high school turned out to be. But you know, I definitely had really high hopes for my 4 years at Stoneman Douglas. I witnessed 6 of my classmates being shot and 2 of them being murdered. One of which was Nicholas Tourette, who saved my life. I had to hide underneath his body to survive. His goal was to go to the Olympics, specifically in Sweden, because that's where him and his family's from. I know he would have reached that goal, but it was taken away from him. You know, life has now become pre-February 14th and before and after. There's no in-between. The shooting 100% took away from me being a regular teenager. And those years, 16, 17, 18, 19, I wasn't able to go and do normal things like go out with my friends because I was on a plane to go speak to a politician or to go speak to a crowd of people about my trauma, which isn't fun. Even when I go out with my friends, we look at the exits and talk about what we would do and just in case, so we had a plan, so we know. There's no such thing as being at the wrong place at the wrong time, because how would I know if I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time? You know, it happened at my school. I was in the right place. I was in my class where I was supposed to be. And it still happened. So it's hard being young in this time.
We're back. Look, the General Assembly is back in session. I know I just talked about it a little bit. I took one of my talking points to gun legislation, but the General Assembly is back. They got back on Tuesday, and things have been rolling nonstop. They are in their final stretch before the end of the year deadline, which is June 30th into July 1. It's always a very interesting time, but it's always a very fast-paced time. And some of the things that I wanted to talk about was, of course, the gun legislation that was introduced that has leadership from both chambers on board fighting hard for that. But there's some other bills going on right now. So another bill that just passed the House the other day bans the box for colleges here in Delaware to ask individuals about their criminal history so that they're not left out of the process of trying to get a higher education, and as people are trying to change their lives around. That's going to be a very critical bill when it comes to criminal justice reform right here in Delaware, and trying to bring down our recidivism rate as well too. It is very hard to get your life back on track here in Delaware, and I'm glad that these last 2 to 3 sessions, it seems as though the General Assembly, especially since we saw the increase in the Delaware Black Caucus, Legislative Black Caucus, has been putting a true focus in on making sure they're addressing some of the needs for our community that have been disproportionately targeted in this criminal justice system.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Everybody can sing Kumbaya, and it's wonderful. We're going to ban the boxes at our colleges, and you know full well that 60% to 70% of the students that attend Delaware State University and the University of Delaware are from out of state. So how do our children benefit from this? And again, I think it's outrageous that a landmark institution and our major colleges have more children from out of state than they do in state, and our children never have a chance. It's fundamentally unfair. It has a lot to do with economics, and it has a lot to do with our failing public schools in the state of Delaware. And anybody, you can go run, play hide and go seek from that if you want to. It's the harsh reality, and nobody is saying anything about it. Nobody's trying to do anything about it. It's just business as usual.
Right. I agree with you on that. And again, this bill's just, it's not the start, it's not the end. There's still a lot left in the process. But I think, this is going to be a critical piece of legislation. Now, also, a bill that was tabled in the Senate Housing Committee was a bill, it was a bundling bill, Senate Bill 311, the Bundling Vacant Properties for Sheriff's Sale bill. And we had some concerns, a lot of advocates had concerns with it because under the current law, when the government is owed money, right, by a property owner, they can foreclose on a property and sell it to the highest bidder at public share sales, right, using the sales proceeds to pay off debt and liens, and any remaining sale proceeds are distributed to the property owner. This would change all that, and so that the share sales, they can bundle properties, which we viewed as government can manipulate the foreclosure process, so the property ends up in the hands of, and pretty much functions as eminent domain, right? So it ends back up in the government's hands, and that they can do what they want with the property. And it was proposed statewide, not just in Wilmington, to both improve for unimproved land and vacant properties, but we have all seen this type of bill pass in other places, and what it's done to communities has displaced African Americans and minorities from their houses.
Well, the eminent domain, which they've tried to bring it forward before, and when Mayor Williams was state representative, they came real close, but he was able to work, raise sand, and stop it in part and parcel to working with other local elected officials. But the same levels of government that wanted to make that happen then are the advocates for this now, and it's inappropriate, unfair, and just a new millennium crooked way of taking people's property.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, it has an apex bidding process about it, which allows for skipping of the bidding on vacant properties for certain organizations, land banks, but also a partner bill with this is a straight out eminent domain bill here for the city of Wilmington that's being introduced by Bud Friel, the former councilman who's now a state rep, who made the promise when he got nominated for this position that he would not introduce any legislation, that he would not do anything outside the party platform, but he would only push to vote for things that are in the platform. Well, he's introduced a bill. He's gone back on his promise, and him and Councilwoman Brigida Fields are going around praising the fact that we need eminent domain here in the city of Wilmington to clean things up. And it's very disappointing that a African-American councilwoman would be on board with something like this.
Well, it's wrong. I hope it doesn't pass. And I think they're going to have a bigger problem because even if they naively pass it, I don't think it's going to withstand the constitutional test.
Yeah.
And for those that are naive and think you can just sneak this through, and you're going to walk away with the victory, I don't think that's the case here, because bringing that forward, passing it, and I hope if it does pass, the governor doesn't sign it, but it will cry out, and in this current form, it cries out for relief from the courts if it passes. And I think they've taken on, they've bitten off more than they can chew, and we'll see what happens. But it's fundamentally unfair, it's inappropriate, and it shouldn't, you know, when you have somebody that's only there for 6 months, in less than 6 months, and a month and a half, now you come back and done something contrary to what you promised you would do. Quite frankly, we'd have been much better off with the person who was already in the seat.
Yeah, I agree. Also, another bill that's been introduced is Senate Bill 305, and it's to address the climate emergency and again continue the push that Delaware is doing. So it sets emission reductions to at least 50% by 2030, bringing down our greenhouse gases, and no less than 90% reduction by 2050. Delaware had originally set it at 30%, and we are ahead of schedule in that. And with the additional ARPA funding, the governor is supportive of putting money behind this to make sure that we are hitting our goals and going far beyond it. It engages DNRAC to make sure that they are reaching out to the overburdened communities, especially communities like South Bridge, Route 9 corridor, that have been disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis, but they've had the least to do with it. It's these corporations that come in and pollute our air. And pretty much it's addressing the fact that no one should have to deal with poor air quality. That is not on them. That is on the laps of government over the years and corporations just not caring about the people where their factories are, but they're caring about their profit lines. So I think it's a very good bill. It passed out of committee. It's going to be up for a vote on Thursday, and we'll see it go over to the House after that.
I represent the Route 9 corridor. DNRAC is full of malarkey, and for the 18 years, almost 18 years that I've been in office, DNRAC has not done anything to be helpful to the whole problem with air quality, and DNRAC has approved just about everything that has come forward, and including allowing and authorizing that gas bomb sitting over there right next to the Delaware Memorial Bridge, and letting that new entity come in. So pass all the legislation you want until DNRAC takes a role in leadership in this. It's not going to happen. And Route 9 corridor is the only place in the state of Delaware where you've grandfathered and you've allowed heavy industry to sit right next to residential areas, and there's no indication anywhere that anybody's going to try to do anything to change it. And your president, y'all's president, when he was in his bringing his transition team in, said twice on national television that in Delaware the example was Route 9, but his administration hasn't come in here to do anything about the example in Delaware is Route 9. And if it doesn't get done for the 2 years, two and a half years remaining in his presidency, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If you have a president of the United States that publicly said this is in the example is in Delaware Route 9, well, if you don't take care of home, I question whether you're going to take care of the rest of the country anyway.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
Well, we're agreeing on too many things. I want to disagree about something.
I think we will pretty soon. But my last point, I just wanted to highlight a feel-good moment in the community. Over Northside or at the Wilmington PAL this week, community members, the employees from Discover Bank and employees from Kaboom all came together to put together and build a playground for the kids who go to the PAL and in the community. And it was just a fun opportunity for us to get to know each other a little bit better and also learn a new skill of how to put together a playground, learn about the fall spaces and how back in the day when I was growing up, they didn't have fall space, which means I could jump off the swing and slide was not too far away. So it was just an interesting experience for a lot of us. The kids actually designed the park. They voted on what they wanted to see in there, what they wanted to play with. It has sensory, it has all different types of things to make sure it's inclusive to everyone. So it's very exciting times right now over the north side.
Well, that's great. And you know, when businesses come in and they help at that level, it's very much appreciated. And that's not fake news. That's great news.
Yeah.
And hopefully there'll be more of it around the city. And I want to thank everybody who's involved, all those business entities that you just named.
And I will say one thing. The project from the state side of things, from the Capital Bond Committee, it could not have happened without the help of Senator Brown. This is in his district, but also, you know, he brought that money to the PAL to ensure that they can make sure that they're still doing the work that's needed and engaging the young kids, as many as possible in the community. So thank you, Senator Brown, for all the work you did on this project.
Very good.
But that is it. We will be right back.
Happening now, the first Friday in June is known as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. From President Biden to Philly sports teams, everyone is calling for change.
Delaware officials are now also working towards several gun reform measures. Here's Jeff Cole.
The mass shootings in Buffalo and Texas have given rise to new gun reform measures, especially here in the state of Delaware, where legislative committees are expected to take up and approve an assault weapons ban as early as next week. Delaware's governor and Democratic legislative leaders announced their package of gun reform bills Thursday, the same day President Biden urged Congress to approve new gun laws.
How much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough?
Biden is pressing an assault weapons ban, expanded universal background checks, and red flag laws. Democrats in Dover are doing much of the same as they seek to ban assault weapons used in Texas to kill school children and high-capacity magazines.
Why the assault weapon ban?
They're just part of the most egregious issues time and time and time again.
David Sokola is the Senate president with 32 years in office. Delaware's new package of gun bills would push the age to buy most firearms from 18 to 21, make gun manufacturers and dealers liable if reckless acts led to gun violence, and ban devices used to turn handguns fully automatic. Sokola says the time is right.
These kinds of things have been upheld. We know they make a difference. We know at this point they won't stop everything, but I think we have an obligation to stop as much as we possibly can.
You don't think this measure will save lives?
No, I do not. It's a solution in search of a problem.
Jeff Haig, who leads the NRA-affiliated Delaware State Sportsmen's Association, says pinpointing violent actors before they lash out is the key to saving lives. And while he thinks legislators will ram through an assault weapons ban and other bills, he says they're pure politics.
This is an opportunity that politicians are not going to let get away. But in the bottom line, it will not solve the problem because you're not dealing with the individual or the underlying causes.
Governor Carney supports the gun reform measures and hopes to sign them into law as soon as the end of the month. In Wilmington, I'm Jeff Cole, Fox 29 News.
And we're back. Look, it's time for Street Heat.
Well,
Pastor Street.
I'm gonna have some fun because you know, all of you who support legalizing marijuana, the governor did what I thought he should do, and he vetoed it. And then y'all didn't have any more sense to come back and try to override his veto. And you know, this was all fake news because you knew you barely got the votes to get it passed in the first place, and you knew they knew that they weren't going to be able to get 2/3 to override the governor's veto, and you have folks down there protesting. But the regrettable hard fact of the matter is You know, and I know, it's going to pass in 2 years. I think that's unfortunate, but you had Matt Meyer down there at the protest, and everybody knows he's actively running for governor, so he's going to support the marijuana legislation. And you also had a lieutenant governor who issued a public statement that said she supports it. So between the two of them, one of them will probably end up being the governor, and in 2 years y'all will have your way. But in the meantime, I don't have to, at least for 2 years, I don't have to worry about the government being the drug dealers that they want to be. And I'm glad that the veto override failed, and I hope all those involved who are embarrassed, humiliated, and we'll see what happens in 2 years. But I didn't like it, and we've got too many young people who are now old people, been in jail for a long time for marijuana, for being drug dealers, and now all of a sudden it's okay, and we got people in government who want to be the new drug dealers, and even county council, I oppose the effort to see to it, because they urged the General Assembly to make it so that the counties receive some revenue, because they knew there would be an increase in the utilization of police and paramedics. So, okay, now we want to be part and parcel. We all supporting this. No, we're not supporting it. We're just saying. No, you're just saying by inference and innuendo that you support it and that we should gain some revenue from it. A drug dealer is a drug dealer. For the 69 years that I've been in alive, we've been locking people up for selling drugs. But now it's okay if the government approves it. So y'all have your way in 2 years. In the meantime, I'm happy about what's not going to happen in the next 2 years.
So I just want to say there was two bills up, 371 and 372, HB 371, 372. HB 372 would legalize them being able to tax it and sell it. That bill never even got the votes it needed to pass the House. The 371 strictly legalized it and went back and would expunge records of individuals who've been arrested for simple weed charges. Would go back and retroactively do that. The issue I have with this is Governor Carney, I believe, was wrong on this. And I disagree with you on this, because I think when we witnessed what happened on January 13th, 2021 with Lamont Moses, with them seeing a little bit of weed and them then executing him pretty much in front of his mom's house. And then we saw what happened down in Georgia with the Dale State lacrosse, women's lacrosse team. The fact is, police use weed as an opportunity to disproportionately target minorities, when all data points to the usage is the same between African Americans, Hispanics, and whites. The arrest rate isn't, though, and the actual selling of marijuana is almost identical among the races as well, too. The only thing that's different is the criminalization, and it has been disproportionately targeted towards black and brown people of color, especially men, over the years. And I think that's why it's so critical to get this done. Now, what happened with the override, you had a few people, 6 people who initially voted yes, flip their votes to vote no. You had the 3 Republicans who voted yes for it, all vote no on a veto override. And then you had Democrat Sean Matthew, Democrat Andrea Bennett, who's retiring, flip their votes from yes to no. You had Representative Bolden, who was not voting originally because she wasn't there for the original vote, to vote no. And then you had Speaker Swartkoff, the cop, switch his vote no again, and Bill Bush vote no again. And Majority Leader Val Longhurst originally voted yes on the bill, but went not voting this go round. So the override failed. You needed 25 votes. It got 20 votes, 20 yes votes, 20 no votes, and 1 not voting. And that's just, it was a hard push. It was a hard haul to get done. I think Representative Ozinski worked very hard on this to make sure that there was a social impact fund, that there was needs addressed into the minority communities. I think he still has a lot of work to do. But this fight isn't over, and people aren't going to stop.
Y'all are going to win it in 2 years. But in the meantime, I'm going to say, like the young man told me, peace pipe, crack pipe, getting high is getting high. And the whole fact of the matter is that everybody wants to ignore, for 90% of the people in the country who are addicted to anything as relates to illegal drugs, the initial drug of choice was marijuana. It's a gateway drug. It's dangerous. As to the Lamont Moses situation, that didn't start with the marijuana in the car. That started with the county police being out of their jurisdiction and seeing a car with a New York tag in Riverside. They have yet to say why they were there. The whole premise that there was a stolen car, and whether the marijuana was there or not, number one, they had no business opening that car. Okay, where is the probable cause to open the car in the first place? And you scared this man. You woke him up out of sleep in front of his mom's house. He tried to get away, couldn't get away, and then they executed him. I don't think it had anything to do with the marijuana.
I do.
Well,
I do.
One thing though, we're crystal clear, is we agree that the use of deadly force was not warranted, should have never happened, and we agree that county police were out of their jurisdiction, and we agree that we got to continue to work to eliminate future occurrences. And one of the things that's been missing for this entire now year and a half is the jurisdictional agreement between the city and the county. And them saying the only thing we have in place is mutual aid. No, I don't think that's true. You've got other things in place, and nobody from the city has cried foul about this. It's like it's just fine a year and a half later, and that's just wrong. But I don't think the genesis of it had anything to do with marijuana. The genesis of it was the suspecting that a car with a New York tag in Riverside was a drug car, and that's the reason they did what they did, and they had no probable cause to go down there and bother him at all from the beginning. But they saw a New York tag, and you had to be driving a car right now with an out-of-state tag because you rented a car for the day. But they didn't think about that.
Right.
In Riverside, it's a car with New York, so it's a drug dealer. And drug dealers are smarter than that. They don't do that, and they don't do that.
I know. And this is, again, they could have easily simply checked the tag at that and seen that it was a rental car. But again, they want to criminalize.
You want to use it to turn around and legalize marijuana. And
they want to criminalize black people.
Peace pipe, crack pipe, getting high is getting high.
They want to criminalize black people. Until they start arresting
marijuana
our counterparts at the same right.
It's already legal. Number one, you got kids standing on the corner right now as we speak getting high. And it's the only crime on the books of the state of Delaware that's excusable. Y'all know it's excusable now. So you legalizing it for what?
There's a lot of excusable laws.
Is there another offense that's excusable on the books in the state of Delaware?
Sure, look at all these banking executives who always get off when they steal money and stuff like that. They excuse that.
They didn't know it wasn't excusable. They were prosecuted, and again, as we said last week,
community service.
As we said last week, apparently the Attorney General's office has great difficulty prosecuting and winning when the defendants find able counsel. And that's what happened. You lost. And speaking of which, I laughed at the fact that the state auditor's case had to be moved from Newcastle County to Kent County. It was funny. But employees sued her the other day. It's no longer funny because, as you well know, the civil standard to get justice is much different than the criminal standard, and I think that the state is going to lose the criminal case, but I also think the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for millions of dollars because I think the likelihood of success with the civil case is quite positive, and so now it's no longer funny because her actions will inevitably cause taxpayers in the state of Delaware probably millions of dollars.
I agree with you. And see, here's the thing.
Well, if we agreed about something else, let's go back to the marijuana then.
Here's the thing. Qualified immunity should be gone in the state of Delaware. This goes back to the policing thing. I feel as though the qualified immunity should have been gone for the officers who killed Lamont Moses.
What is qualified immunity?
Qualified immunity means that if they are prosecuted and stuff like that, it's covered by the government. It's not actually them. You're not suing them, which means you're pretty much suing for your own taxpayer dollars, but it's also pulling from everyone else's, instead of actually going and getting to the root cause and holding these people accountable for their actions. So yes, I don't know what's going to happen in either one of those cases yet. I think one has a better chance of going in the favor of the people than the other. I won't say which one, but we're going to be following that. I think there should be setting a date relatively soon. And honestly, it probably that trial will probably be starting sometime this upcoming week.
And it'll probably be over this week. and my better judgment tells me, based on what counsel for the defense is saying, that it gets dismissed criminally. But that doesn't eliminate the problem now that the entire state has as it relates to the civil litigation.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And then you had another piece here you wanted to talk about in Street Heat.
Well, I just got excited when I saw that the General Assembly, to its credit, passed a bill that says you can register to vote on Election Day. I think that's fantastic. I want to commend everybody who brought that forward. I want to commend and thank all the people who voted for it, because I think there will be some people, as happens across the country, that won't be registered, will want to vote on Election Day, and they can go to the polls and register to vote right there. I think that's outstanding.
Yeah, and just a little more background on this. This was a bill sponsored by Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker. And, you know, what it does, it creates more access, right? So people who are unaffiliated here in the state of Delaware, which we have extremely high voter registration. It's just people don't come out to the polls. But if someone has moved, right, and has not updated their voter registration, or they're unaffiliated, they can do that same day and be able to vote and have their voices heard. So I think that's a huge piece of legislation that passed the House, and it goes to the Senate. It looks like it has the votes to pass the Senate, and hopefully they get it to the governor's
desk. I got so excited I thought that it had already passed. I apologize for that. I thought it had already gone through.
No.
We got a good start.
Right. And, you know, all they had to do was amend the start date from January 1st, 2022 to January 1st, 2023 on the bill. They put an amendment on to do that. So very exciting times right now down in the General Assembly.
But why didn't they make it before the November election?
So they can't do that in an election year. So that would be something that would take place the following year. Same thing with how they did in 2020. They got early voting done, which is a 10-day process leading up to the election. And then that Monday, there's no early voting, but then Tuesday is election day. But 10 days from that Sunday, 10 days back, you can go to one of the satellite locations to vote early if you won't be able to vote on election day.
Well, you know, here you the young man putting the old man in short pants, and I should know that law better than you. But here again, I commend you for knowing the law and understanding the rules and regulations. And again, I thought it had passed, but that I guess I was overzealous in my excitement.
Yeah, no, it will pass soon. I'm going to speak that into existence, but all right.
And we hope the governor will sign it.
Yeah.
Unlike he did the marijuana legislation.
Yeah, let's hope he has some common sense on this one. But that is it. Look, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. As y'all noticed, Pastor is not here. He's enjoying himself on vacation with his family and members of the church. So hopefully they have a great time there. When we're stuck here in Delaware, and, you know, it was some flooding, so I thought I would be able to pull out my boat and, you know, go down the river a little bit. But again, it was an amazing show. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like,
all that
comment.
Stuff that I don't know nothing about.
Like, comment, share. Look at us on YouTube as well, too. Tell a neighbor to join in next week. Thank you so much. This is Kobe Owens.
This is Jay Street.
Y'all take care.